Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with JAYONBOXING here, giving you a personal prediction for Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte 2. And as always, of course, this is just my take. Your predictions can be left down in the comments section below. It's a fun, interesting rematch at heavyweight, so certainly love to hear all your thoughts, your predictions, all that good stuff down in the comments section below. And a little bit of fight info here. We have Anthony Joshua taking on Dillian Whyte. This is a rematch from their 2015 encounter. This will be at the O2 Arena in London, England, airing live on DAZN and DAZN pay-per-view across the pond. Haha, Brits. This will be in the heavyweight division with no titles on the line. So this is a pretty interesting fight, as mentioned. Certainly a very fun, interesting heavyweight clash, which we don't seem to be getting a lot of because the best don't seem to always want to fight the best at heavyweight and aren't really following the program of the rest of boxing for this year that really seems to be getting into those kinds of fights. I digress. When the pair first met as pros back in 2015, they were unbeaten, rising stars looking to kind of use each other to propel themselves into the title picture. Now, with some losses for both having kind of been stopped at different times, they need the win even more than they kind of did back then when they might have had more time to sort of rebuild. Now, they don't have time on their side. This is when they need to kind of get things going, and it is, once again, against each other just to stay sort of in the loop at the top of the division. The question is, who still has enough left to make sure they are the one that ultimately settles their long-standing score? Does Joshua repeat his initial success, or will Whyte pick up the absolute biggest win of his career? Let's break this one down. Starting with Joshua, for Joshua to win, I think you want to weather the early storm. I think Whyte will likely try and storm early on here. Again, could be wrong. Maybe he tries to box and move a little bit more, or try to see things out, feel things out, but I just get the feeling that he's going to want to try and do that against Joshua. He's going to at least want to try to apply some pressure. Joshua needs to stay focused, not get emotional, not try to use the bravado that he might have even used in that first encounter, because again, he is a different fighter at this point, for better or worse. So he needs to realize that as he's looking to sit back a bit more and land the big shots that ultimately here and there will land and begin to settle Whyte down. This will then set up that work as the fight progresses and as it wears on, once you're able to tame Dillian a bit more with those kind of punishing shots that, again, don't require you to have to exert so much emotion or energy, but just land here and there, ultimately settling him down and weathering that early storm. I would also say straight and to the point. Now, what I mean by that is a couple things. For starters, in general, it means keep your work simple. You don't want to overcomplicate things. You're still kind of learning your new system with your new trainer to begin with. You don't need to overcomplicate things and try and reinvent the wheel. You just want to keep things simple, straight and to the point. But also, you want to keep your punches physically more compact and straight line. This doesn't mean you don't throw any hooks or throw that uppercut that you can work really well against Whyte, which we'll get into in your final point here. It just means you want to keep your shots nice, quick, and get them home fast. As Whyte is backing up or kind of covering up, then the hooks will open up and be there for you. Then you can land that uppercut, and it'll be there, I think, especially against Whyte, who seems susceptible to it. But ultimately, you want it straight and to the point. You want to focus on speed and not power. That will be what ultimately keeps you fresh as well, because you're not loading up. We'll get to those shots there quickly, safely, allow for you to build into the fight, and then land some of those more punishing blows later on in the contest. And as mentioned, look for the uppercut. Of course, that last key kind of leads into it. The uppercut will be very important for you if you're Joshua. It's just a shot Whyte does not do that well against. He's been stopped several times by that uppercut, including by you in Anthony Joshua, so it's certainly a shot you want to revisit. When in close or when he's pushed back, that uppercut can land well. And you have a pretty decent one. You throw it pretty well. You can even double up that uppercut pretty well. I've seen you do that against Kubrat Pulev, for example. This is another opportunity for you to be able to do that and punish him with it. You just have to be mindful on your defense, as his left hook could be a shot that he tries to time you with and counter with. He's did that again in your first encounter, so you want to be sure to be mindful of that. But otherwise, that uppercut is certainly a punishing blow, one you throw well, and one that can land pretty consistently against Dillian Whyte. And switching over to Whyte, for Whyte to win, you want to land something early. Now, this does not mean be reckless. This does not mean that you have to sell out early. But I do think you want to start with a faster tempo. And I think this will ultimately allow for you to help set the tone for how this fight's going to go and give yourself the best chance for success. Joshua needs to kind of get into that panic mode when he kind of thinks more than fights, where he's trying to figure things out. You can do that by creating a little bit of chaos here and there, by starting a little faster and hopefully getting one of those bigger blows to get in, land early, and force panic into Joshua. When he's panicking more, he tends to shell up a bit more, and that's when you can start landing some even bigger blows as the fight wears on. This, of course, will also allow for you to build some confidence. One of your biggest issues, unfortunately, against Joshua in that first fight for you was that you landed something earlier, but it was in survival mode when you had already been hurt yourself, so you couldn't capitalize. If you can press the action a little bit better here, do it with a little bit more controlled chaos, and land without being hurt, you might be in a better position to capitalize and close the deal. And sort of tying into that to some extent is make Joshua work. He can tire. He's a big buff dude. He's got some muscle on him for sure. That requires more oxygen. That requires a lot more harder breathing, and that can tire a guy. And you, on the other hand, can carry power pretty late into fights, and you don't seem to have as much of that stamina issue, at least not at your best. If you can exhaust him while still having those bombs in you, it might pay off for you later in this fight if it goes into those championship rounds. And again, this ties into that sort of fast start. If you set the tone early, then force him to up his own tempo, you create openings and the chances to see him fade and potentially walk into those kind of shots. Heavyweights aren't usually volume punchers, so you don't have to be that. I don't expect you to be that. But you have to create enough moments where he's working to set these potentials up for you in this fight. And finally, I would say look for the left hook. Ultimately, that's your bread and butter, your best shot. It's the shot you throw really well, it lands really well, and Joshua has been tagged by that left hook, specifically by yours in that first encounter, and you've stunned him with it, so you know it works. Joshua also seems to be very susceptible to being stunned by shots that land on the temple. If you're able to get that hook around his guard and land it a bit high, it could have a disastrous result for him and a very good one for you. It's also a very good counter for his uppercut if he's trying to throw it from too far out. And let's be honest, if you're aware of your shortcomings, you know you're susceptible to that uppercut, so you should be at least aware of what you can do to try and make it work for you, by setting it sort of up as a trap to land that hook. It can even work against his right hand if he's leaning too forward with it. Again, another way in which you can use it as a counter. It can be a shot you land early, sets up all of the other kind of good work, allows for you to set that tone, might even make AJ shell up if you land it a few times, and will allow for you to have some success. Now, in terms of my pick here, heavyweight boxing is always a bit tricky to predict, but I am going with Anthony Joshua to repeat his win over Whyte. I think Whyte tries to come out and land something big. He probably should, but still, it might leave him open to getting caught, which I think he will. A right hand likely stuns, at least settles Whyte down, and Joshua begins to build up based upon that work. As the rounds move along, Joshua will put more shots together, and you guessed it, the uppercut by Joshua will likely put Whyte down. He might beat the count in this case. It might be more of a shot that just seems to badly hurt him as opposed to completely puts him out, but ultimately the follow-up work will drop him once more and cause a stop to the action. Winner, Anthony Joshua via mid-fight stoppage. And the betting odds for this one have Joshua as a pretty sizable favorite, coming in at a minus 650, with Whyte coming in as a pretty heavy underdog at a plus 440. I think the odds make sense to some degree. Both have, again, had some ups and downs, but Whyte has seemed to fade a bit more, has shown up in not the best shape for a couple of fights recently, and hasn't been the sort of fighter you would expect him to be, that kind of killer coming out for fights. Been a bit too tactical at times, and ultimately has not looked his best. So the odds seem to be fair to me in this particular encounter. That said, it's heavyweight boxing, so if you're looking for value, it is in the underdog here in Whyte. Again, a small bet, one you're willing to lose. It is heavyweight boxing, though. Anything can happen. In terms of the over-under, it's set approximately at 9.5. I wasn't exactly able to find a straight line, but that's where you're getting the best value in my opinion. The over is coming in at a plus 105, with the under coming in as a minus 135. So it's right there in that kind of mid to going into championship rounds. In my opinion, I like the under in this case. You're not getting exactly straight up odds, but they're pretty close. A medium bet there makes sense to me. I think whoever gets the win in this fight is stopping the other guy, and I think it comes fairly early. So I do like the under in this particular one, but in any event, those are your odds. And my prediction record as of this recording is 24-10 with 16 exact. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, predictions, bets, so on and so forth. Of course, I will be dropping a preview for this fight as well, so I'd love if you guys would check that out as well. Of course, I will be posting that shortly. In the meantime, of course, you guys can leave some questions down in the comments as well about this fight that you'd like me to answer, and in that preview, I'll try to get to those. Deadline for those questions will be Sunday night. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter. Twitter at jcalderon_JOB, and you can also follow me on Threads at JAYONBOXING. We'd love it if you did that as well. You can email me at jayunboxing@gmail.com. Love to hear from you there. And of course, be sure to check out jayunboxing.com for schedule results, betting odds, rankings, grades, all that good stuff. And as always, until next time.